moving to a new place, it can be pretty hard to figure out what to expect. So we want to shoot this little video for you, 10 things that you didn't expect about living in Colorado Springs, and we're gonna jump straight in to number 10. All right, so number 10, we are way higher than Denver, and no, I'm not talking about the devil's lettuce, you little heathens, okay? I'm talking about elevation. We're actually about 1,000 feet higher than Denver in elevation, and the altitude absolutely matters here. When you first get here, you're totally gonna notice the altitude if you're coming from a lower elevation. Perfect segue though, speaking of marijuana, as we stand here in OCC, we're pretty close to Manitou, but if you didn't know, I mean, Colorado's like super famous for weed, right? Which I don't really understand. There's so many cities and states that have legalized it at this point. But if you didn't know, recreational marijuana, or at least the sale of it specifically, is not legal in Colorado Springs. Here in OCC, we're pretty darn close to Manitou. I mean, literally right down the street from it. But if you didn't know, you have to leave Colorado Springs to purchase marijuana recreationally, or without a medicinal card, you actually have to leave the city. So you're either driving to Manitou, where I've heard it's pretty expensive, or you're driving to Pueblo or driving to Denver, whatever the case may be. But recreational marijuana is not legal in Colorado Springs. All right, so number 8, the roads are constantly under construction here. I mean, this is one of my biggest pet peeves. If you don't like road construction, you should leave a like for this video, because I hate road construction, and it literally is all over the city all the time, and it's for a couple of different reasons. It makes sense. I mean, the weather here, like, you have constant quick temperature variation, plows coming through in the wintertime, they're tearing up the asphalt and stuff like that, and you just have huge population growth here, so we're constantly like having to expand roads and remake things and figure out how to make traffic patterns a little bit better, but certainly still frustrating nonetheless. Roads are constantly under construction here. Point number 7.5, fireworks are illegal. Keep that in mind. So number 7, I think people kind of have this, I don't want to say misconception, but this idea or this notion when moving to Colorado, it's going to be all mountains everywhere. We're standing here in Garden of the Gods right now, and the topography across this city and really across the whole Front Range can vary wildly. Downtown, just a little bit south of us, you're sitting at 6,000 feet. We're a little bit higher up here in Garden of the Gods, a couple hundred feet up. Man, out in Falcon, my folks, they live at like 6,900 feet. All the way down in Fountain from Monument, that's gonna be a 1,500 foot elevation difference. And so like your neighborhoods and the weather because of that can vary drastically across the city. Number 6, the wildlife here is legit, and you're gonna see it all over the city. I have deer in my front yard eating all the time, all the little crab apples in there. Yes, we do get bears, we do get mountain lions. Right here in Garden of the Gods, there's rattlesnake sightings all the time. So the wildlife here is legit, and you do see it all over the place, but it's also nothing to worry about. Number 5 thing that a lot of people don't expect when they move here, we are not a very condensed city. This city takes up a massive geographical area, right? Our county, El Paso County that we reside in, it's the size of Rhode Island. It's actually slightly larger than Rhode Island by itself, just the county. It's a massive area here. And what that means for the city is a ton of urban sprawl. I remember driving here and pulling up when I was a kid in 2005, getting to the eastern edge of the city, which used to be a lot further west than it currently is, being like, man, there's just a sea of houses out here. And now it's to the point where even though we only have maybe 500,000 people in the city, it's a 45-minute drive from south of Fountain to Monument. So huge geographical area here. Definitely want to make sure you know that before you move here. And listen, real quick, before we get to our last 4 points, I just want to take a minute and say, if you are thinking about making the move to the Colorado Springs area at all, if you didn't know, if you're new to the channel, we are licensed realtors here in the state of Colorado. And we are the people who answer the phone calls, emails, text messages. We've helped so many families just this year make the move from all over the country to Colorado Springs. So definitely reach out, give us a call. All the information is in the description box below. Make sure you get to us and we'll get right back to you. Point number 4, we're actually driving down Highway 24 right now, or Cimarron here in the city. This is gonna be your main access out of town, getting up into the mountains. And I think what a lot of people don't expect is that Colorado Springs is much closer to the mountains. And in my opinion, and a lot of other people's opinion, the access to those mountains is way better than it is in a place like Denver. So if you live in Denver, especially Denver proper, you're a lot further away from the mountains than you are here in Colorado Springs. In Woodland Park, that's what, 30 minutes from our office? Like, it's super close. I can be in the mountains in, 30 minutes from the middle of the city. And even the ski resorts and stuff, a lot of people will be like, man, I really want to live in Denver so I can be way closer to the ski resorts. You're really, at this point, not that much further away from the ski resorts, thanks to I-70. If you haven't ever seen the Instagram page, I-70, is it I-70 problems or I-70 people? Something like that. Yeah, I-70 things. I mean, I-70 on a weekend, let alone a weekday, on a weekend is atrocious. So the nice thing about living here in the Springs, you can hop on Highway 24, and yes, it will get busy and crowded on a weekend because everybody's trying to get out of the city, up into the mountains. But you can be at the ski resorts via Highway 24 to Highway 9 and Fairplay in maybe 10 or 15 minutes longer than it would take you from Denver. So it really is like something that you don't expect moving here, is that you're way closer to the mountains and have way better access. The third thing that you might not expect, or that a lot of people might not know about our city, is we are the Olympic city. That's how we've kind of branded ourselves, but it is also just kind of embedded in our DNA, right? We have the Olympic Training Center here, the Olympic History Museum. You can see, like, some of the things that we have marked around our city all kind of tie back into that. And it's really not uncommon either to see a lot of the athletes around the city. We've had Apollo Ono train here, Michael Phelps. We get a lot of athletes that'll fly in and train at some of the ski resorts and things like that for the Winter Olympics. I've got a client who's an Olympic shooter that lives here in the city, so it's not uncommon to see our Olympic athletes, on the biking trails, on the ice rinks, on the running and hiking trails, all those things. I think it's a really cool part of our city. Something that, the city is constantly like kind of embracing more and kind of growing around more. And something that's just really cool to see. All right, so number 2 thing, we're getting toward the end of the list. A lot of people maybe don't necessarily expect this, or maybe don't necessarily know this, but our food and restaurant and kind of nightlife scene and fashion scene, all that stuff is kind of behind the times. It gets a little bit chainy here in the Springs, but here we are at Acacia Park, kind of in the heart of downtown, and there's definitely a lot more like local options for you, right? So a lot of people do know our brewery scene is really great here. Our coffee shop scene is really great. I've got Story Coffee right here behind me, and then kind of the rest of the downtown area where you're gonna find a ton of local restaurant options. Actually, let's just go ahead and zoom up there real quick. So as I was mentioning, this whole kind of Tejon corridor all through downtown is just packed full of like local options. Now listen, it's not a Denver, it's not a New York, it's not an LA, right? Like I mentioned, it's a lot of chain restaurants all over the place, but the scene is coming along. So behind me, I've got T-Bird Tacos and Tequila. Actually right up this way, I've got Skirted Heifer right here behind me. Bingo Burger right there on the corner. Bell Brothers Brewing, where we had some amazing beers during our brewery tour, is kind of right down the street right here, like half a block up. So this whole area, I love this whole area because You can get all sorts of just delicious stuff here. Actually, one of my favorite taco shops, an extension of Dos Santos, Dos, is right here. So there's just all sorts of options all throughout this area. So even though we don't have a ton, we still have some really great options. So last thing and number one thing that I think a lot of people don't expect, because the notion out there is Colorado Springs is ultra conservative. We got a comment one time, I don't know who this was, it was like, this is an evangelical capital of the world. Colorado Springs is actually not that way. Are there a lot of like Christian organizations and headquarters and things like that here? A lot of churches here? Like, yes, for sure. But also at the same time, like, we're downtown. There's like LGBTQ plus owned businesses. There's a mosque on the other side of town. Like, I'm not saying everything's perfect either, so don't at me in the comments with that crap, okay? We're very mixed politically here. It's almost 50-50 at this point. It's very what we call kind of purple. It's as much blue as it is red, as much red as it is blue. And we actually think that's a really cool thing and makes our city really unique. We even have an independent mayor here. I have a great interview with Mayor Yemi on the channel as well, so make sure you check that out. But for now, this has been 10 things that you might not expect about Colorado Springs. My name's Sam Loving. Thanks for tuning in to the channel. And if you want to know more about Colorado Springs, we have a massive playlist of all sorts of neighborhood tours, a brewery tour, all sorts of other stuff on the channel. So make sure if you're thinking about making the move to Colorado Springs, you go ahead and check out all those videos and reach out, give us a call. We'll see you next time.